Hi everyone. Today's topic is calcium homeostasis. This is a very interesting topic, okay? And here are the learning objectives. So we're going to be learning about the importance of calcium and what can happen if normal levels are not maintained. We're also going to briefly discuss the location and structure of the parathyroid gland and how it responds to changes in calcium ion concentration. Also, we're going to be learning about the hormones involved in calcium homeostasis, specifically PTH. And finally, we're going to learn about signal transduction involving G cells within the parathyroid glands, bone cells involved in bone remodeling, and in the cells that line the renal tubules. So here the importance of calcium. So calcium lends strength to the skeleton. You know, most of the calcium, as you can see here, according to an article published by the Harvard School of Public Health, about 99% of the body's calcium is stored in bones, and the remaining 1% is found in blood, muscle, and other tissues. Now, intracellular calcium concentration is kept low by calcium ion pumps to prevent its crystallization with phosphate, which is, intracellularly. Calcium is stored within the sarcoplasmic reticulum of muscle cells, and calsequestrin is a protein that binds the calcium there. You can see that not only calcium gives, the the hardness of bones, like the hard part of the bone, we call that the inorganic matrix, which is mostly calcium phosphate. But also, calcium can also activate the sliding filament mechanism of muscle contraction, that we learn in skeletal muscle. Oh, we're going to be learning in skeletal muscle, by the way. The sliding filament mechanism, we're gonna see how calcium binds to troponin, and that will expose the active site for a contractile protein known as myosin, and it's going to help us in muscle contraction. Also, calcium serves as a second messenger for some hormones and neurotransmitters. We're going to see that soon. Also, we need calcium to activate the exocytosis of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and other cellular secretions. Also, calcium is an essential factor in blood clotting, and also is needed to have, to sustain cardiac ventricular contractions long enough to ensure effective ejection of blood. This is something that you're going to see in anatomy too. Now, calcium concentration is regulated chiefly by parathyroid hormone, calcitriol, and calcitonin. These hormones work through their effects on bone deposition and resorption, intestinal absorption of calcium, and urinary excretion. Now, we're going to be focusing more on parathyroid hormone, as I mentioned before, but also parathyroid hormone, as we're going to see later, is going to trigger the production of calcitriol by the kidneys, which is also needed to increase calcium ions in blood. So if we want to increase calcium ions, then the hormones that are needed to be stimulated are parathyroid hormone, or PTH, and calcitriol. If the calcium levels in our blood are high and we need to decrease them, then calcitonin will be the hormone to be released. Now, what happens if we have an imbalance of calcium? For example, if we have a lot of calcium, more than like abnormal levels of calcium, abnormally high levels of calcium, well, that can lead to a number of problems. And you can see some of the causes of calcium levels being high in our blood. And one of them is acidosis, acidosis. Now, acidosis, when we have a low pH, remember that the pH in the blood is between 7.35 to 7.45. So if it drops below, and it's very acidic, the blood, then what's going to happen is that we're going to have a lot of calcium. We're going to have, there is a protein in the blood which is known as albumin, and it binds calcium. So there's going to be less calcium bound to albumin, and therefore the calcium levels are going to be high in the blood. So acidosis is a cause of hypercalcemia or high levels of calcium in the blood. Another one is if we have an excess of parathyroid hormone, PTH, in the case of hyperparathyroidism, or even in hyperthyroidism. We can have a high turnover of bone. Basically, bone demineralizes, with hyperthyroidism. So this is one of the causes of osteoporosis. Also, cancer. Cancer can also cause high levels of calcium in the blood because there is a parathyroid hormone related protein, similar to it, that can cause the demineralization of calcium from the bones. Also, something that professors do, we sit for a long time, so prolonged immobility, that can lead to decalcification and increased calcium levels in the blood. And, if we take too much calcium or vitamin D, then that can also cause high calcium levels. Now, notice that if we have a lot of calcium in the blood, then it's going to interfere with sodium, okay? Now, sodium is needed for muscle excitation, okay? So if we have a lot of calcium, then we're not going to have a lot of sodium coming into the nerve cell. And because of that, you're going to have, it's going to inhibit the depolarization of the nerve and muscle cells, and that's going to lead to, muscle weakness. Our reflexes are going to be diminished, suppressed. We can have cardiac arrhythmias. There's a different applications in here. But I think this is an important thing, an important concept to understand. Having a lot of calcium can lead to muscle weakness and depressed, reflexes, and basically the neuron is going to be inhibited. So that can happen. Now, with hypocalcemia, if we have like low calcium levels, notice that the opposite things are going to happen. So this can result from vitamin D deficiency. So if we don't have vitamin D, we cannot absorb calcium. Diarrhea is a cause of, it can also cause the loss of calcium. Pregnancy and lactation can also decrease calcium levels in the blood. In the case of alkalosis, meaning like if the pH in our blood is too high, then we're going to have a decrease in calcium levels. Okay, so alkalosis, if the pH is high, then there is going to be hydrogen ions released from albumin, and we're going to have more calcium, bound to albumin. So this is one of the most important proteins in our blood, in our plasma. Conditions like hypothyroidism, like low PTH, hypothyroidism as well, and alcohol abuse. Now, here's an important concept again. So, I boldface here words that are important. So you can see that that in the case of in hypocalcemia, how is that going to affect nerve transmission? Well, now if you have low calcium, then you're going to have a lot of sodium coming in, and that's going to cause an overly excitable neuron, meaning that this can lead to muscle cramps, spasms. Okay, and here's two things that we can see with severe hypocalcemia, like low calcium. We have what is known as Shostak and Trousseau sign. So basically, if we strike with our finger, like right where the zygomaticus major muscle is, if we kind of like do that, we get muscle twitches. And also, if we put a sphygmomanometer, when we're recording blood pressure, that can lead to carpospasm, and that's Trousseau sign. So these are signs of hypocalcemia, which is really interesting. Now, here's the location of the parathyroid glands. They're like these 4 little glands behind the thyroid, right posterior to the thyroid. In the histology, we can see there's 2 types of cells that we can find in the parathyroid glands. We have, chief cells, and there's other cells in here that is oxyphil cells, but these have an unknown function. The function is not very clear. But chief cells are the ones that are going to be stimulated to release PTH. If the calcium levels are low. So here's an image that I found. So here is the chief cell in here, the parathyroid cell. And we can see that there is a calcium sensitive calcium sensing receptor on chief cells. So if calcium levels are low, then that's going to cause it's going to cause genes to be stimulated or activated to produce these peptide hormone, which is known as PTH. Okay, so PTH is released, and you can see that it targets bone, it targets the kidneys, right? These are the major targets of PTH, bone and kidneys. Okay, and now in the presence of PTH, the kidneys also makes calcitriol. Now, calcitriol is another hormone that can act in the small intestine, and it can cause the absorption of calcium and phosphate. Okay. Now, calcitriol, to make calcitriol is made from vitamin D, basically. So there is a cascade reaction. Okay, that's going to take place. Now, this is pretty much with calcitonin. We're not too concerned about calcitonin. So if calcium levels are high, then PTH will not be released. Okay, but calcitonin will be released instead. But calcitonin is coming from the thyroid gland, not the parathyroid gland. But you can see that increased levels of calcium can actually cause inhibition of PTH. Okay. All right. So you can see again here that PTH, once it's released, it targets bone, kidneys, mainly. Okay. And then the kidneys can make that extra hormone, which is known as calcitriol, that is going to act on the small intestine. Okay. There is some cancers, again, that can make, like cancers of the breast, in this case here, and you can have the release of PTH, PTH related protein that is going to cause decalcification of bone and increase of calcium levels. Here is a picture of the nephron, which is in the kidneys, and this is a site where PTH works on, and basically you're going to have reabsorption of calcium, because if calcium levels are low, you don't want the kidneys to lose the calcium. This is just a picture about signal transduction. This is more in depth, but it tells you how PTH is the hormone that will bind to a protein receptor and activate a cascade reaction here. And it's going to lead to increased levels of cyclic AMP. And this is something that we can see, in, like, for example, in kidneys, for example. Let's see here. I want to kind of like show you images more than anything. So let me go through images here. Here's PTH. PTH is a hormone. Now this is acting on the bone. Okay, so remember that when calcium levels are low, that's going to be the stimulus for the chief cells in the parathyroid gland to release PTH. PTH is going to target bone. So which bones, which cells in bone? So PTH can bind to osteoblast. There is a receptor here, okay, a receptor here. So it binds osteoblast, and it will cause the release of rank L. This is a rank ligand, basically. So this protein will bind to an osteoclast precursor, and it's going to lead to activation of osteoclast. And osteoclasts are going to, cause demineralization of bone, basically. And then that's how we can get our calcium and phosphate levels to be, elevated because they were low. Okay, they were low. So, excuse me. Again, this is another image showing you how osteoclasts are activated by a ligand, because PTH will stimulate osteoblasts to release this product. Okay, this product which is called rank L or rank ligand, and that's what's going to bind to osteoclast precursor and are going to, and then they're going to be actively causing demineralization of bone. Here's a kind of like an algorithm showing you, and again, we're focusing on PTH. So you can see that if calcium levels fall, the parathyroid glands are going to, the chief cells in the parathyroid gland are going to release PTH, and it's going to target bone and kidneys. So what it's going to do to the bones is going to activate osteoblast. So, it's going to stimulate osteoblast to release the ligand, the rank ligand. The rank ligand will bind to a rank receptor on the osteoclast, and that's how these osteoclasts are going to release, enzymes that are going to break down bone and give us the calcium that we need, because since it's low, we need to increase it, okay? PTH is also going to target the kidneys, and it's going to cause the retention or reabsorption of calcium. And there is a hormone that is made by the kidneys, which is known as calcitriol, which is going to target the small intestine and then it's going to cause calcium and phosphate to be absorbed from there. One of the sites in the nephron tubule where PTH targets is the distal convoluted tubule. We're going to see this structure, as we get later in the course. Now, what's interesting, this is again, the essence of the physiology, what can happen at the distal convoluted tubule. So PTH, what's going to happen is it's going to bind to a receptor there, and it's going to cause the activation of genes, and basically you're going to have the expression of channels for calcium. So you can see that in the lumen, in the tubule, as calcium was passing through there, we can see that we can take it back. We can take it back, the kidneys from the tubules, we can take it back, and then we can transport it across. But there's two ways to do this. We have for us to transport, for these cells here to transport calcium into the blood, basically, from the lumen into the peritubular cell into the blood, we need to have high sodium in the extracellular fluid over here. So how do we do that? To do that, we have a sodium-potassium pump. So what it does, this is primary active transport. So what it does, it pumps out 3 sodium from within the cell, and it brings back 2 potassium. So the sodium-potassium pump is keeping sodium low in the interior of the cell and high on the exterior of the cell. And so now what we can do is we can use that sodium gradient to drive calcium out of the cell into the blood. This is called secondary active transport mechanism. Okay, there is another mechanism which helps us to pump calcium from within the cell into the blood, and that's this calcium pump that uses hydrogen ions as a driving force. And this one uses ATP. As you can see, this is primary active transport, just like this one here is primary active transport. But again, this is necessary, for us to move calcium back into the blood. Now, we said that in the kidneys, there is a hormone made, which is known as calcitriol. And calcitriol, it's a hormone made by the kidneys again, right? Here's calcitriol. But it's a hormone that we need vitamin D, basically. So in the skin, we have this product, which is called 7-dehydrocholesterol. And when we are exposed to UV radiation, we're gonna get cholecalciferol. It's kind of small here, but we're gonna get vitamin D. So this is called cholecalciferol. And then in the liver, there is an enzyme known as 25 hydroxylase, which is going to convert that vitamin D into calcidiol. And that has another name, okay, by the way. But in the kidneys, there is another enzyme which is known as 1-alpha hydroxylase, and it's going to convert that product into calcitriol. Now, calcitriol can target, bone, kidneys, and gastrointestinal tract. Okay, but we a lot of times, we mention about the role of calcitriol helping us, to absorb calcium from the gastrointestinal tract. Now, you can see that calcitriol, again, this is the interstitial lumen. Here's the blood. So basically, intestinal lumen. So this is the inside of the intestine, okay? And so in there, we have calcium. Now, calcitriol binds to a calcitriol receptor on these cells that line the lumen of the intestine, the small intestine. And you're going to have, gene expression, and you're going to have, these channels for calcium being expressed here. There is other channels here being expressed. But notice that allows, calcium to move across, okay? And through the same mechanisms that we talked about before, we can move calcium into the blood, basically. Okay, also, we can express channels for phosphate so that we can transport phosphate. Here's a sodium phosphate cotransporter. This is a secondary active transport here. And here is the sodium potassium pump, okay? Sodium potassium pump in here. So keeping sodium low within the cell so that if we have it outside the cell in high concentration, as we have here in high concentration, we can drive in phosphate, okay? And here is basically, here is osteoporosis. Osteoporosis, there is a gene, there is a gene here that can be, that its function can be lost. And this can lead to activation of osteoclasts, resulting in uncontrolled bone resorption, leading to osteoporosis. You can see spongy bone is the one that is affected. Here are my references, okay? And where I got all my information. But I think, it's important that, we include as much physiology as possible in our lecture class, talking about these ions, how these, membrane channels help us to transport these ions. This is the essence of the physiology. And as we go through the course, we are going to, we're going to learn more about them, okay? So that is my presentation for today, and I hope you enjoyed it, okay? So have a nice day.